welcome back. I wanted to take some time today and talk a little bit about albinism, and this is kind of a basic, like this is like albinism 101. Begin at the beginning. I think that it's something that a lot of people don't know about. Welcome to Albinism 101. I don't know what I'm going to title this video yet, but I thought about titling it, "Hey, are you albino?" Because like growing up, that I heard that so much. Everyone you meet will have a different opinion upon this, right? But for most of us with albinism, that term albino is just like, I don't know, some people don't care. For me, it's just grating. It's like kind of a derogatory slur. That's how I receive it. And I know that it's just a term, right? It's just terminology. And we choose our words and we choose how their meaning affects us. But any time that the word albino was used, it was used to be a slur. The person who said, "Hey, you albino," they didn't mean it to be like, "Hey, that's so cool, you're an albino." Like, no. They meant it to be like, "You different freaky person." So I attach a really negative meaning to the word albino. Now, many of my friends are totally cool with it. I don't know. I just don't like it. I have issues with that word. So, there's that. Alright, so albinism, what is it? Albinism is a genetic inherited condition that affects the melanin pigment in skin, hair, and or eyes. The or piece involved there will come in when we talk about the different types of albinism. There are a number of types of albinism, and I think that this has really kind of expanded in terms of knowledge and research and information over the years, because when I was a kid, the only types of albinism that were really discussed were Oculocutaneous albinism, which is what I have, and Ocular Albinism, which is a type of albinism that only involves the eyes. Additionally, albinism affects people from all racial and ethnic backgrounds, and typically a child with albinism is born to parents who are normally pigmented. The statistics currently say that about 1 in every 18,000 to 20,000 people in the United States will have albinism. So in oculocutaneous albinism, try and say that 10 times in a row. In oculocutaneous albinism, the lack of pigment is visible in skin, hair, and eyes. Typically, people with albinism will have a lighter blue or blue-gray eye color, but some people do have like a hazel color or a brownish color of eye. In ocular albinism, the lack of pigment only occurs in the eye. A person with ocular albinism will have normal pigmentation in their hair and skin, but they will still have a lighter eye color. Albinism always will have some visual component, some impact on vision, but there is a wide spectrum involved with that vision impairment. So I have friends with albinism who are capable of driving and their vision is very minimally affected. And I also have friends all the way across that spectrum. The majority of my friends with albinism have a visual acuity that hovers around the same place as mine. My visual acuity throughout the course of my life has hovered between 2200 and 2400. It has typically and pretty consistently stayed at about 2400 throughout my adulthood. The vision impairment piece with albinism is due to a combination of factors. A couple of areas of the eye develop abnormally in a person with albinism, both the retina and the nerve connections from the eyes to the brain. With respect to visual acuity in albinism, there's that range that I was talking about, that spectrum, can be anywhere from a nearly normal visual acuity, which would be 20/20, perfect visual acuity, normal visual acuity is 20/20, to anywhere from 2200 or worse. Now, to talk a little bit about the types of albinism, I am not a genetics guru by any means. I give you this information with that disclaimer in mind. I will link below in the description the websites that I've been kind of researching through. Oculocutaneous albinism, skin, hair, and eye involvement, which is the type of albinism that I have, has currently been typed into 7 types. as I hold up 5 fingers. 7! 7 types. They are creatively named OCA 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. When I was a child, they didn't do the genetic testing that families are able to get now. There's no real functional benefit to me, especially at this point with that information, but I mean, out of curiosity more than anything else, I think it'd be really interesting to know. Ocular albinism is the type that only involves the eyes in terms of the pigment. So a person with ocular albinism will still have normal pigmentation in their hair and in their skin. Additionally, there is a syndrome called Hermansky-Pudlak syndrome. It is commonly abbreviated to HPS. HPS has 9 types. It also is characterized by signs and symptoms including unusual bruising and prolonged bleeding. And it is suspected oftentimes when a person who has OCA, oculocutaneous albinism, has testing done to determine the type of their albinism, but those tests come up inconclusive. Some people with HPS will have pulmonary involvement, and they experience a type of lung disease called pulmonary fibrosis. Breathing problems tend to develop in the person's early 30s and continually worsen. My understanding is that the pulmonary issues are specific to certain types of HPS. In some types of HPS, there is involvement of the large intestine, and some of them include issues with kidney failure as well. They look at the signs, symptoms, and the underlying genetics for that person in order to determine the type of HPS that they have. The visual pieces that are involved with albinism include Nystagmus, which is the back and forth movement of the eyes. I don't know if you guys can see that, like if you can see my eyes moving during a video. I'm gonna guess that you can, but the people who see this the most are my family, especially because my nystagmus gets worse as I get tired. Another piece of involvement is strabismus, which is the muscle imbalance of the eyes. I think that I have some strabismus, but it's pretty mild, and I know that there is also a spectrum of strabismus. I only really notice my strabismus when I'm like in a photo, or when I'm this is gonna sound silly, but when I'm like taking a selfie with my kids or my husband. My eyes are almost never both at the same place in terms of looking toward one direction. Photophobia is an easy one for me to talk about. I have pretty severe photophobia. Again, this is an area where there's a wide spectrum. The reason for that is that for most people with albinism, it's not just our pupil, the little black center of your eye, that allows light in. For most people with albinism, your iris, the colored part of your eye, can also let in light instead of filtering it out. When I go outside, if it's a sunny day, that pretty much disables my functional vision. If it's an extremely overcast day and I go out and, you know, you've got the bright white, gray, whatever, bright white gray of the sky, and you've got here in Minnesota, you've got the bright white of the snow and it's reflecting and there's glare. My functional vision doesn't work then either. Just in certain situations, I can't even see. You know, the reactivity to light also is part of it. Like if I go outside in the nighttime and it's dark, but then there are bright floodlights or bright lampposts on the sidewalk, yet again, the way that my vision functions, I can't see at all during those times. So it's sometimes it's just really hard to describe. How do I see and what do I see? The way that an ophthalmologist will describe this is that what you are able to see at 200 feet away, I should be able to see at 20 feet away. And that's kind of their description based on the acuity and, you know, measured information and things like that. Now, that's never really made a whole lot of sense to me. I suspect what I would see at 20 feet that you can see at 200 feet, I can see with a bit more accurate detail at that 20 feet level when you're at 200 feet. But I honestly suspect that it's still lacking in definition, lacking full detail. I cannot see faraway details. I'm very nearsighted. I can read some print, but it has to be large print and it has to be very close to my face for me to see it. So if you see me reading, it's gonna be like this most of the time. Or sometimes I actually bend down. I don't know if it's because it blocks out some of the light, and so maybe that makes it a little easier or a little bit, I don't know. But that's usually like I have to get very close to read something, or if I'm doing artwork or a craft project or something like that, I have to get really, really close to the piece of paper. I know that I still can't see the level of detail that people with normal sight can, but to me, I can see some level of detail, I guess. In terms of general description of my visual ability, I'll see a building or I'll see a person, but I won't be able to see them unless they're pretty close to me, and I won't be able to make out any detail until they're right by me. As a person who was born with my vision impairment, I've never seen out of fully sighted eyes. I have only seen out of my eyes, and to me, that is normal. Things don't generally appear blurry to me, but I know that they're blurry in a sense, or that they would look blurry to you as a normally sighted person if you were to see out of my eyes, because I know that I don't see with the same detail that a person with normal vision sees. My vision is highly environmentally dependent. It's highly dependent on the conditions around me. So if there's a lot of light, if there's a lot of sunshine, or a lot of overcast condition with snow on the ground, or even if it's very dark but there's like one bright thing, whether it's a lamppost or a movie theater screen or things like that, in those circumstances I don't see anything. Now that may be different for other people with albinism, because all of us have a different level of photophobia, all of us have a different level of visual acuity and different level of involvement of other factors. And so what I experience and how I see things isn't going to be the same as the person next to me who may have albinism as well. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch and to learn a little bit about albinism. If you have any questions, comment below, and I'll see you next time.